Welcome to the November 9th, 2015 Delhi Township Budget Meeting. We have three departments presenting tonight. What I want to do is have the presenter go through their budget, explain everything, have the trustees, fiscal officer, administrator hold off on questions so we don't interrupt you, sidetrack you. We'll then ask questions and we can dialogue. And then after we're done asking questions, anyone for public comment or public questions can certainly come to the podium and ask. And we're going to do that for each department, so you have all the numbers in front of you. Again, with the public comment or questions, we will limit it to 5 minutes because we have the regular board meeting starting in about an hour, so we have to get through this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Landrum.
Yes, thank you. Our budget information is available online. If you haven't seen it, it's under, if you go under the administration tab, you'll see budget. And then under the 16, because this is all 16 information, and there are 7 different PDF files available. The bottom 2 are from the state fiscal year stuff that we did in July. But the 7 budgets there are broken down for everyone. Basically, they outline, the introduction includes the administrator level and high level by fund at a high level. The administrator letter is about 13 pages. It goes through 2015 expenditures. I'm a firm believer in believing where did you come from to know where you're going. So therefore we address 2015 and then we go into 2016 in the administrator letter. So pay attention when you're clicking on this, the introduction, the administrator, each thing really pretty much tells you what's in each section and what's included. As well, tonight I wanted to thank the Financial Advisory Board just to let everybody know what has happened. All the budgets have been reviewed by myself first, by Jim Luby, the fiscal officer, and by the FAB. Financial Advisory Board members have met with each department and reviewed and have had time to have all their questions answered. So we will have FAB members speaking on behalf of the departments that they are representing tonight. First up is going to be the police department. Come on, guys. Tonight we have a pinch hitters. Chief Howarth is in training that I thought that he should really attend. He said he could not go, and I was like, no, it's important enough for him to attend. And plus, we have some great qualified guys that can stand in the gap for him. So Lieutenant Braun, Lieutenant McLarusso, we appreciate you guys pinch hitting, and go ahead and take it away.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank you all for allowing us to be part of this process, and I would also like to thank the FAB members for being so helpful throughout the year, and Mr. Luby as well. Just going to go over some opening remarks real quick. Our #1 goal was to remain fiscally responsible, obviously, while providing the same level of services to the community. I mean, that's critical. We do the best we can for less money. Secondly, we negotiated fair and equitable contracts with the patrol officers and first line supervision. We tried to reach our full complement of officers at 29 this year. Unfortunately, with injuries and retirements, we operated almost a whole year without an officer on the street, so we operated primarily with 28. We had 2 retirements, primary reason for that purpose, Sergeant Swable and Officer Ramstetter. Did not have any organizational changes throughout the year. We operated our first full year with a part-time property custodian and evidence technician, which greatly assists Lieutenant McLarusso in that regard, and replaced our phone system in conjunction with the administrative building. So that's kind of a brief overview of some of the projects we had as far as throughout the year. I'm going to jump right in and go over the 09 revenue accounts. Overall, real estate property taxes, we project a slight decrease, a 1.27% decrease. The other account, 15.63% decrease, and that's primarily, in the other account, it's kind of, we anticipated 4 cars we sold this year. Next year, we plan on selling 3. State reimbursed training, there's a major increase there. Basically, that's based upon this year we had 4 hours of mandatory training. Next year we have 11 of mandatory training. We get reimbursed for that. Web check and fingerprint, we're going to see a 20% decrease in that. That's kind of leveled out compared to what we saw a drastic increase service to the community. In transfers in, this year we got 55,269. Next year, our department is going to be fully responsible, as others, for shared services. Estimate year-end revenue for 15 to be 4.579 million. Proposed revenue for 16 is going to be 4.451. 2.37% decrease, and primarily highlighted in those items I just mentioned. 22 revenue accounts overall is going to be a 72.62% decrease. And that's primarily in 15 we received roughly $16,000 in seizures that obviously we can't account for 16 because obviously we're not sure what we're going to get there. Hopefully we get a lot, but we'll see where that brings us. So that being said, we're going to jump into the appropriation accounts. Sworn personnel salaries is an increase of 1.75% over 2015. That includes a 2% salary adjustment for the collective bargaining agreement. That is for 29 officers. You'll see an increase in salaries part-time personnel, 32.57%. In the end of 2015, with your approval, we added 2 shifts of 6 hours to the front office. And then what we'd like to do in 16, if our volunteer staff can't answer phones on the weekends because of the complicated phone system we have 16 hours of part-time staffing hours built into that, primarily because the supervisors the phone calls go directly to the supervisor's cell phone now, and the phone is constantly ringing. Obviously, it's ringing. It's a good thing because it's not going to the comm center, but unfortunately, the officers can't get to the phone all the time, and it goes to a message where they hang up and call the comm center. So it would be a very good service to us if we could have somebody in the office on the weekends. Office equipment purchases, you're going to see a decrease there, primarily because we bought new chairs in 15. Gasoline, you're going to see a 27.78% decrease. It's based on the actual usage plus obviously the cost savings because gas was good to us this year. Uniforms, you're going to see almost a 39% increase, and that's primarily because we need 14-bolt resistant vests in 2016. The good part about that is we get a 50% reimbursement from the feds on buying vests. So we should see, they're about $800 a piece, so we should see about $400 per vest back. Investigative supplies, that was a new account for 15. You're going to see a drastic increase. However, those items that are in that line item were removed from the patrol supplies. We want to track the supplies the investigators are using as well as the patrols officers. So we actually, the equipment we were going to buy, it was actually for the investigators. So we felt as though we should move it into that account versus, being in patrol supplies. Same dollar amount, but it just moved to another account. Shared fleet services, this year is a new account. We wanted to create that account so we can track the miscellaneous shop supplies and uniforms for mechanics, et cetera. Building repairs, you're going to see almost a 35% decrease. We have no anticipated large repairs for 16. Knock on wood, we're going to continue to patch our aging generator. If that thing goes, then obviously we might have to come back for a reappropriation. That's rather old and it's kind of falling apart on us. Health insurance, 10.3% over adopted 2015, includes the 19.5% increase. That's primarily due to plan changes and employees not taking coverage because they're transferring to their wife's plans or et cetera. Communication fees, this is probably one of the first and only times you see a decrease in that account. 3.75%, and that's based on the anticipated dispatch details for this year times 2095. That number is obviously the amount's gone up, but the number of calls go down because we're getting more calls to the supervisor's phone as well as going to the front office. So that saves us a lot of money. Physical exams, you're going to see an increase there. That's based on the number of physicals needed in 2016. Telephone, you're going to see an increase there. As stated earlier, we got a new phone system installed. It's an increase here, but there's a decrease in the computer items because we no longer need a a system that records the phone system, which was $2,900. And the number one thing with the new phone system, the calls are going, like I said earlier, we're going directly to the supervisor's phone, saving us comm center money. Cellular phones, you're going to see a 25% increase. That's $1,300. There's just a minor increase for the cell phone usage. However, the chief elected to get 2 tablets, one for himself and one for the investigative unit, so we can work on covert assignments. As far as when the officers are out, doing surveillance, they can run plates, they can document information as far as in the tablet. It's very useful to them. Workers' compensation went up 7.97% over 2015 revised amount. Auditor and treasurer's fees went up almost 21%, and that's based on the actual usage over the past 5 years. IT support, that's basically, we signed a new contract with a new company. It's additional money, but obviously the services are a lot better than we were receiving from the old company. Software and software support, almost an 81% increase. They cover shared and department-specific programs. One of the major increases, this is the first year that we're going to be required to pay for our records management system. When we purchased the system, we built in, I believe it was 4 years or 5 years, as far as service agreement with that system, but this is the first year that we're going to pay for it. It's $8,100. Payroll service charges, there's an increase. That's primarily due to all the new healthcare reporting requirements through the payroll system. And vehicle impoundment, towing fees, you're going to see a slight increase there, $500, which is 33% increase in that account. Overall, in 16, the proposed amount for appropriations in the 09 accounts is $4.216 million. With that being, we're going to jump into the appropriations for the drug accounts. Those match the revenue accounts, and there's a 74.62% decrease in those as well. Just to touch base on the ending fund balance, our anticipated fund balance at the beginning of 15 was $1.88 million. Our projected ending fund balance for 15 is going to be $2.681 million. And then the projected ending fund balance for 16 is $2.916 million. So hopefully I didn't go too fast.
Nope.
I'll open it up for
Got it all.
questions.
Do you have any questions, Trustee Seavey?
Just a reminder, your SRO is reimbursed, so anyone looking at it, you're going to see it on expenditures and revenues,
Yes.
because the school resource officer is reimbursed by the school district. I did have one question, because I'm looking at your fund balance, and generally what we have historically said is a fund balance going forward should cover about 1/4 of the upcoming year, the first quarter of the year. And your fund balance appeared to be pretty healthy, and I believe that is truly that's a product of being very fiscally responsible, both you and your FAB representatives, for going through your budget. And going forward with that budget, is there any opportunity, maybe within 17, to add that 30th officer that we've been looking at for a long time? If I remember correctly, and you can tell me, but I went back and checked the number, one officer is about $90,000 a year, package-wise.
That's correct. The plan's going to be is after we get through this process and figure out what our numbers are at the end of the year.
Okay.
The chief and Lieutenant Macaluso and I are going to sit down and meet with Administrator Landrum and see if there's room to add additional officers. We're too proud of what the ending fund balances are looking like.
Right.
And we're going to look at that and see if it's feasible, and then once we meet, we'll obviously devise a plan, and the chief will get with you guys in executive session and talk about that.
Well, I think that would be a wonderful product of you being fiscally responsible. Really, and the 29 officer number, it seems like we get there and something happens that we fall back off of that 29 number. Either retirement or injury or something. It seems like we're always falling back. So even if we do go forward and add, the officers, we're probably still going to have an officer fallback somewhere. So,
You know, and the fortunate or unfortunate part is it takes a long time to replace an officer. Obviously, with the background check we have to do, then plus the 12 to 13-week training program, that once they start, they have to go 12, 13 weeks with a training officer.
right.
You know, by the time you net them out and figure out who the best candidate for our community is going to be, it takes a while to replace somebody. And that's why, in case somebody's wondering why we went a whole year without hiring somebody, it's because of those reasons.
Okay. And do we have a confirmation that it's $20.95 next year?
That's the number that, as far as we were told.
Okay. And
I
they
don't know if
said
we
they
got
were going to
100%
piece,
certain
they
on
said they were going to piece together radios. Are we still on the mix and match, piece it together radio system with Comp Center?
My understanding is they're going to reprogram our radios. We've gotten confirmation that they're going to need our radios 2 different times when they're ready for them. But other than that, the number that you have is the number we were provided. So hopefully that's a number that's hopefully it's a lot less than that, but we'll see where we're at.
Thank you.
Just a couple questions on the officers. I know we've talked about getting undercover officers, dealing with the drug problems. I've talked to, I think, both of you two, and even Howarth, said typically you need 2 officers. That you can't send one alone, you need 2. If we would go up to 30, do we have the room to use one of the other 29 to get that second person, or are we looking at actually hiring 2 officers because we don't have enough for the other positions?
That is things we are going to look at. We're going to wait till the year end and make sure we have the expenditures and re-update the forecast. I think there is a thought process that there would be 2 potential because of that reason, and looking at the long-range forecast over the next 5 years, it looks like there would possibly be room for 2. What positions are, if they're all both investigation or if they're, for the drug, whatever else, that's stuff that we'll bring forth in January or so, a recommendation and review by the board at that time to make some decisions, or what the spirit of the board is at that time, what the will is.
Well,
But it's definitely possible.
I would think too, if you do undercover officers, you get all the forfeiture revenue along with that, which that's the revenue we don't have now. That would certainly offset some of their expense.
Absolutely.
Some
Absolutely.
of it. It
And
doesn't pay for salaries, though.
No,
So,
but
yeah.
you'll forfeit a lot more.
But the most important thing is I know Lieutenant Macaluso can comment if he wants, but everything we're seeing increase-wise today is you can generally link it to the drug problem. I mean, they're stealing everything that's not nailed down, obviously to supply their habit.
You also mentioned the generator. If that goes and we need to replace it, what are we looking at, an estimate?
I believe the estimate was between 32 and 34,000, if I remember correctly.
So if that happens, what's the plan?
We've talked to Administrator Landrum about getting it on the TIF as far as the TIF budget at some point in the near future.
The facility manager and stuff has looked at it, thinking we can limp along another year. It's been a bad one. Well, it's an old one. Heck, we got it used to begin with. But with what's wrong with it, we think we can make it limp one more year. If it does go kaput, there is fund reserves in the TIF to go ahead and do it if we have to. But it's a priority for the 17 budget as far as what I have it for now. If something would significantly change with that, we'd bring it to the board's attention immediately.
So right now with your fund balance and the levy cycle, you guys are definitely good for 5 years, if not more. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
But that also depends on whether we hire 2 more officers, because that would certainly add additional expenses. Is that?
That's correct, but I think that the way we're going to look at it is, obviously, our goal is to make it last as long as we can, and we'll sit down and obviously forecast it out and make sure that we're making the right decisions for our community and for you guys as well, the recommendations we would provide. But I still think we'd be, no question, good for 5 years.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, so I will open it up to Fiscal Officer Luby.
Jeff, my only comment is I do appreciate the fund balance projection. Obviously, we're very healthy for the next 5 years and probably a couple of years after that. So that just lets the residents know that you guys are doing a great job and spending their money wisely. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hey, Pete, you're good?
Yeah, I'm fine. He covered it.
All right. I'll open it up now. Anyone that wants public questions or public comment at this time regarding the police department? Well, yeah, you're next.
Oh, Dale, yeah.
Come on, Dale.
You're next. All right, well, we'll move next to the FAB representative, Dale Weisker.
Nobody else is asking any questions. Let me say this, one thing about the fund balance. That's the budget. It was the over-under there for 2015 is going to be closer to 800,000. That's where it came from this year, because we're only adding 234, around 250 next year. So
15 to 16.
yeah, which in the second year, that was kind of what we were looking for with the levy, that the amount of dollars we had. So we are better off. But the big thing is, these guys do a tremendous job. Chief Howard, Lieutenant Braun, and Lieutenant Macaluso, they give us so much backup. We hardly had any questions. I mean, we questioned about, the officers and that, but one thing is, like they said, it's tough to get officers because we don't really want to pay for them going to get their training. So we're looking for people that have already gone through that, and that's costly to pay for someone to go through the training in Columbus or even here. So that's one of the things. And then we already hit on where we're at. We're in good shape, and it could last longer than 5 years, but maybe we can't afford to do that too. So
I think that's the balance, Dale, between
Right.
can you afford to do it, or does
Right.
crime say you can't afford not to do
well,
it?
we do have additional people in this year's budget though too. So
Okay.
As far as the clerks.
right.
Thank
So-
you, Dale, for all
And this
you
is
do.
even with now the 100% being paid of the shared services. So that's
Right.
really, they're in good shape for
And the
doing that.
healthcare cost going up 19%.
Yep, it's all in there.
So as the FAB representative, you would recommend that we adopt this budget that's proposed?
No doubt, no doubt. They do a great job. They have everything for us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
Good job, thank you.
All right, next we will move to the fire department. Chief Campbell.
This is Doug's first year. Actually, let me just state this, give Doug some kudos. I'm sure the FAB board don't mean to steal their comments, but last year Doug was here before us representing the budget, but that was representing the former chief's budget. And Chief Campbell this year asked me, he said, do you mind if I just take it and more or less do a zero-based budget? And I looked at him like, absolutely. So basically, he's done a zero-based budget. It's his own. He moved some things around here or there, so you might see some variances where he felt comfortable at what kind of category something fell in. But other than that, I'm very proud of the budget Doug's presenting here tonight, and I'll let him give you the updates. Go ahead, Doug.
All right, thank you. Just as a highlight, the fire department's definitely feeling the pressures of our hiring candidacy out there for part-time. Certainly, we're going through some of the same painful stretches as ACA takes effect, and part-time hiring is fluctuating from year to year. It's not a crisis. However, it's made it very hard to manage because one of the things that Delhi values very much is our work schedules for our part-time employees. And as time goes by, a new generation of firefighter hits the street. And I don't know that necessarily our schedule meets their needs or their desires. So looking forward, a lot of positive things coming up ahead for the fire department in terms of growth, but that underlying struggle of our manpower and bringing in fresh blood is going to be very difficult in the next years to come. It's something that we're all seeing. I've reached out to other township and municipalities. They're having the same problem, and it's hiring paramedics at the part-time level. The only reason I bring it up in a grander scheme of things, just remember that's our farm team. These are the folks that we develop into our full-time personnel. So if we're going to have tight times over the next couple of years, that in turn will reflect on our full-time hiring. And my projections and talking to our people, we're looking at possibly 5 people in the next 5 years being eligible to retire. And in doing so, a lot of this budget is around personnel development. So we keyed in on training. I cannot take all the credit for this budget. This is going back through the ranks, talking to the personnel and their areas of responsibility. and really kind of keying in on what needs they saw for now and in the future, and trying to really develop our strengths. So this budget is formalized around that. And fortunately, when you do zero-based budgeting, you don't know what you're dealing with. You kind of go through that whole process, break it down, and lo and behold, it worked out in the end. So you'll see these numbers really reflect strength in a third year of our levy. It's consistent with what we typically expect. This is our breakover year, so it's fairly even. But you don't know that going into the process, so it's worked out fairly well. And just a lot of communication through the ranks to make sure that this prioritizes what we need. You're not going to see a great deal of change within the fire operation. However, most of the changes could result through the TIF request, so I'll comment on those later. With our revenue, we are funded both through the fire levy and the EMS billing fund. And the 10 fund, which represents the fire fund, you can see it is decreased. The biggest offset is that there's no transfer in for reimbursement this year from the general fund, so that's $77,000. We're fully funded next year without any transfers in from the general fund. We are seeing a slight decrease overall in tax revenue, and this year we're not anticipating any big reimbursement through Bureau of Workers' Comp, so that would be the big difference in the revenue side of that account. I'm going to jump real quick to the 28, so we're talking revenue. If you look at the EMS fund, we're expecting a slight increase. Remember, when I came to the board for billing rate adjustments and speaking of the electronic patient care reporting, all those measures went into effect in June of this year, and just as recently, a couple months ago, is where the rate changes are. We'll see the full effects of those next year, but I do anticipate an increase because of the offset that goes along with that. We're no longer reimbursed. We're not charged the 8% billing fee. It's now closer to 6.5%. So that's what you're seeing there. But overall, 2.9% increase in the revenue on the ambulance account. The reason why that's important is because our biggest account for the fire department is wages, and that is evenly split for full-time. Not evenly, I'm sorry. It is split for full-time personnel between the fire fund and the EMS billing fund. Okay, as far as our expenditures and appropriations, we're relatively flat with our fire salaries. That does take into account the 1% contractual wages that covers all line personnel, including chief and assistant chief. This is the first full year of our new basic staffing model. One assistant chief instead of two that we had years previous, and this will be the 3 additional paramedics hired 2 years ago and 3 full-time EMTs hired last year or this year. Part-time salaries, you can definitely see significantly different because that is adjusted to the new structure. Last time I came before you, we had 7 to 9 personnel per slot, that we were heavy on the part-time side. And to accustom that, we are down to 5 part-time personnel, or 24-hour shifts per shift now. So that is a reduction on the part-time side to account for the increase in full-time. One of the major changes that we'll also see is we did take our shared services accounts are fairly heavy for the fire department. Those areas that are covered by our full-time equivalents, it's a large department, so definitely take a good percentage of that. But it does cover our mechanics, facilities, and property foremen, all the things that we use services internally. So it works very well for us. It's rather than us hiring them, we're using them through the township. Fire equipment is offset this year because we split out a number of accounts. Just to speak specifically to it is we had SCBAs in there, and it's important to note that the reason that was broken out was we have some upcoming challenges regarding our SCBA equipment. Those would be our air packs that the firefighters use for interior firefighting, but I'll get onto that when I get to that point. With that being said, communications equipment's adjusted. We took out all our cellular charges and things like that that are associated with our operation. So that equipment, communications equipment, is specifically emergency radios and the like. It used to have phone bills and things like that mixed into it. That's all been pulled out into a different account. So it's much easier for me to audit. Gasoline is a slight increase, but then that is actual usage, and we're looking at basically a 5% increase in usage. But with the gas prices the way they are, that's a bit of a relief. So it's about the same. No other big changes. Fire vehicle repairs. One thing that we've grown very accustomed to in 2015, this is the year of vehicle repairs. Last year we were talking all about station and facility repairs. This year we've been hammered, moving money a lot within our budget and to account for a lot of the repairs that we have in our fleet. With that being said, the status of our fleet, it's very healthy. It's very, and again, the mechanics have responded to my request to basically treat these vehicles as if they were their own. They're safe on the street and operating. But again, to attention to detail, to get that fleet up in the condition that it is, it's definitely something that takes a lot of investment. You see the SCBA repair account. When we come to you for a request in the TIF request, it's going to be for matching funds to cover the SCBAs. Those SCBAs were purchased by a grant 2004. Since then, we've had a number of issues in maintaining them. They're out of warranty. Those parts are hard to come by. Repair and maintenance is very difficult. So what the budget reflects is essentially is if we do not get the grant, we still have to maintain the current SCBAs. And in doing so, that's where that greater expense is coming from. That's why that's separated out. So we look to continue to maintain and operate our SCBAs in that regard. Facilities, no major issues on the horizon with facilities. Everything seems to be well within the budget and expected to be the same. Health insurance increase is definitely related to that 19% increase that we're seeing in the budget, but it is included. Dispatch fees, a pretty significant increase. That again is based on that $20.95 per call. What I would look is if the county decides to fund it differently, that would be a decrease on our part. And I know they've discussed about offsetting the cost. Not much, but that is based on increase in runs over the last 3 years. Training, I told you the emphasis on personnel development. When we get to the point where we're talking promotions and hiring full-time employees, I think that the township and the fire department have the resolve to really invest in our personnel, make sure that our internal folks are best suited for promotion in the ranks, and this funding will allow them to do that. Medical fees, not much of a change, but we are accounting for possible 8 part-time hires. Employee processing is a new budget line item. Again, that just accounts for the new hires and allows us to separate. There's no major utility changes, all projected within the way the township had set it up. We're looking at 5% gas, 2% electric, 5% sewer, and 2% water across the board. Again, looking into it, these changes won't likely change until 2017 with the addition of a new station. Last big increase to speak of, the software and software support. One of the things that we're hampered with right now is we have essentially an expired operating system for our security, and in order to update the security at both the the Rapid Run station and the Neeb Road station would present a pretty significant expense because they're no longer supported. And the idea is we need to get down to one company that we could also utilize for the new fire station in terms of security, and that would be the key card system that's in there. Just for that 2 stations upgrade is $20,000 of that $66,000. EMS-wise, back into the 28 account, one big increase I want to speak to is the squad equipment. That does allow us to purchase a new cot. We currently have 2 new cots with the newer ambulances. This would allow us to have those bariatric cots we'll have 3 now, essentially. They carry a larger stature patient and higher weight loads. So any questions?
Trustee Seavey?
I was in a conversation with someone about the cost of Narcan. How expensive is it?
It was $11 and now it's about $40.
Okay, so when we use Narcan, is that insurance reimbursed or is that from squad supply? How is that? How are we paying for the Narcan we're currently using?
Through the EMS reimbursement fund. We cover all drug purchases, not just Narcan, but any of the medications that we distribute.
And that's not a reimbursable expense. So it kind of falls under the same category as some diabetic supplies.
If the here's the kind of paint you the picture. In 2013, we had 39 overdoses we administered Narcan. Last year, we had a 50% increase. We're at 59. So far this year, we're at 62. So it's only going up. And when you talk about the rates of $11 per administration, now at $40 per administration, Hamilton County is looking to get a grant. We applied for it today in terms of a survey. Money is coming to the county to be distributed, and it's based on need. So they're going to evaluate how much Delhi Fire Department is administering Narcan in comparison to the rest of the county, and hopefully supply us with some of the Narcan that they're distributing out there.
Okay, so the person I was talking to had it about right, because they had it at about $50 and haven't gone up from 11 to 40, you're saying? Mm-hmm. Okay, the bariatric cot. There was some discussion with your Western Hamilton County chiefs about buying a special cot that maybe could be used in mutual aid.
Yes.
Is that still a possibility, or are we just
It
independently
is.
doing a bariatric cot?
This is better than what we've had. They have a higher weight load, but it's not to the effect of what you're asking about. These are very, very large patients. And yes, still looking at it from a regional grant aspect, it never worked through workers' comp is where they originally tried. So we're going to try again.
Okay, because I understood the injury to not only be to the patient, but to the EMTs actually moving the weight of the patient.
Right. Our biggest challenge is, when you look at from an operation, there's a lot of agencies out there that will send 2 people on every run and then call an engine. We're sending 3 minimum on a run. And then again, it's the same thing. They all have full freedom to back up with more manpower should they need it. The equipment-wise, we're capable of handling bariatric patients. These would be extreme situations where we would need the type of equipment that we're talking about. But right now,
And that's
Springfield
what you
Township
had in
has
mind
it.
with the shared services.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. Great
you.
job.
This one's minor, but why was there a $1,000 increase in publication in books?
That previously was in the fire prevention supplies, and most of those books that you will see in there are code compliance books and things like that. We moved them over to publications and books just to get them out of those supply accounts. It existed in another account and was just pulled out. Felt like it made more sense to have it with books and publications under those circumstances.
Okay, so that number's really not going up. It just got moved to a different category. And now we see the increase from
Correct.
previous years.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing is, and I had you prepare it last year, but I forgot to send Pete an email. How many runs we do for the Mount, the Mother House, Bailey, that we bill for versus what we get reimbursed. I think last year was about 1.2 maybe we billed out, or $1 million, and we only got reimbursed about 500, 600,000. Are you familiar with those numbers? And
overall, as an agency, that's close to what we bill out, and our return is closer to 580, 600,000. But that's as a department. That's not just in those locales.
okay.
The fortunate thing is, and our billing agency says this, is Delhi is very strong in terms of its reimbursement. We're very fortunate to have the health community that we have. Reimbursement is on a higher level in Delhi, closer to 60%, I believe, in comparison to outlying neighbors.
So across the board, it's 60%, whether it's typically the Mount St. Joe or whatever.
60% or where we're at is among the higher in the region.
Okay.
Yes.
And how are we doing on the levy?
Like I
we-
said, this is as the third year of the levy. This is our breakover year. We are within 3,000 of what's coming in. So as far as the money revenue, even with the decreases that I talked about in our expenditures, we're only off about $3,000. So with the carryover that implied, you know, it's on the back wall there. Yeah, $3,700. With that being said, in terms of a 5-year levy, it is very strong for a 5-year levy.
But it's not enough where we can stretch it out. I mean, you anticipate the 5-year cycle, and then we would.
Pushing it out too far could come at a detriment.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the reality of it is that I think we can stand behind 5 years. Anything further than that, we would have to have some serious conversation.
Okay. That's all I have. Fiscal Officer Luby.
No comment.
Next, we'll bring up the FAB recommendation for Andrew Marks
Oh,
or
I
Kevin
covered it.
Kappa.
He's filling in. He's filling in.
So, good afternoon still.
Yes.
Well, yes, Pete, you did touch on a lot. Chief, you touched on about everything we have to say, but just to reemphasize some of the items on there. And I'd like to thank the other FAB members, Charlie Fair and Andrew, who is out ill. That's why I'm stepping in for this. But the chief presented a very well-defined budget. And this being his first full year, you wouldn't believe it, he did an outstanding job. All the members felt that same thing, and I know the staff with the township also did. Chief Campbell, as it was emphasized, built this from ground zero. And it was mentioned a couple times by himself. Bill, you had asked about the breakout or what a line item was. He went through and took a number of items and broke them out, which I think gives a clear picture of the budget. So you can truly identify the items and where they fall. That was a good move. Also, they have taken steps and measures to help compensate for some of the increases in one area from another. They're down one assistant chief. That's going to help out in other areas within the department. The staffing shift from part-time to full-time is definitely going to have an impact, because you think about all the time and effort that's put into when you bring in a part-time, and in the fire department throughout the entire county, there's constant shifts. The part-timer jumping from one department to another. So if you can retain them, that definitely helps in the overall cost. So that was definitely a positive move. We also wanted to state that we had addressed the new station that will be going in. That will not affect the budget during 2016 and not until 17. So, also, you mentioned the key card security system. I think that's a good move. Bring everything together. And overall, that helps make life a little bit simpler, too, when you can bring everything in. So that's another positive move on their part. Succession planning, he alluded to that. Their forecasting, looking at the staffing and what it's going to take to replace those down the line. So he's addressing all those issues as well. And, of course, healthcare. Don't have to put a lot of emphasis on that. We all know what's taking place there. So, but with that being said, he did an outstanding job, and the FAB was definitely impressed.
So as the representative, you'd recommend we adopt this budget?
Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Any public comments or questions on the fire department? Nope. All right, thank you, Doug.
All right, thank you.
Next, we'll move to Public Works. Mr. Rippinger.
And Pete Feichner is forbidden to ask about salt.
What salt?
It's a joke as a FAB member. He used to be with under Public Works, and it was always salt, salt, and salt. Ron enjoyed that, right?
Yeah. I'll try to make this short. Just want to thank FAB. They're great to work with. always asking the right questions. Pete and Mr. Luby, always good to work with. I guess our main goal is to maintain 54 miles of road, stay in budget, maintain our fleet, buildings, vehicles. That's kind of what we go for. I'll zip through some budget highlights. For the most part, a lot of my line items are pretty uneventful or don't change a whole lot. Let's see, I'll hit on salt revenue in the O3s. It's down, and last year was a little bit of a salt crisis. Oak Hills did commit to buying a certain amount of salt. This year I lowered that amount. The price of salt is pretty good, and until I can predict the weather, I got to keep that low. Oak Hills has always paid their bill as far as what they've used on salt, so it works out good. 04s and 23s in the revenue. I'm sure you're familiar with the shared services. Those are decreased to 0 now. Everything else in revenue has pretty much stayed the same for the most part. So I'll shoot to expenses. 03 is salt again. Last year we didn't use, or well, this year technically, we didn't use what we budgeted, which was good. Just decreased amounts depending on the snow and more plowing, so we didn't use much. Let's see, another one, I'm going to 23 building repairs. Let's see, this year we did floors and stuff. This kind of goes up and down. We have no intentions on moving our building, so we do try to keep it in good shape. This year we budgeted for some rusted outdoors replacing and some fence that needs to be replaced. But that still was a decrease from last year at 40%. Anybody have any questions? Well, I'll go to 04s. This actually decreased salary under 04s. It's one of the first items there. Overall, it was less due to we had a couple retirees. But that is also adding a part-time seasonal employee for the summer. We just need some help putting out asphalt, working on the busy roads. We kind of struggle with that. So we're going to try that out this year. Something the Fab caught was in 04's the DRETAC fees. We no longer get income, or it's no longer an expense for our department. I think it stopped a year ago.
That was, I think that was delinquent taxes that were collected for estate tax, I believe is what that was. And since estate tax is gone bye-bye, there's no need for that type of.
It was about $1,200 total, so it was pretty minimal. That's all the major highlights I had in our accounts. As far as operating difference, if you take out what we put into paving and operating in the revenue, our operating to revenue is about usually over $250,000. That's an important number I try to keep track of. It lets us put more money into paving. Our actual balance that has been pretty much staying the same within 100 or 200,000, usually stays around $1 million. That's our projected forecast is just under $1 million. The bottom right, 996. And that's not even taking into account that our road projects maybe just a fraction over halfway done, and we normally, finish under what we estimated, hopefully. Let's see.
Just to clarify for people, because unlike certain departments, I mean, you heard fire department had 2 funds, police has 2 funds. Public Works operates with multiple funds. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different funds, funds 2, 3, 4, and 23. And basically, year to year, what really changes is kind of where Ron takes, where the cash is built up enough, and where he can then decide to take for the road projects, for salt, So he'll take turns on using cash reserves in certain funds, and typically that's what makes a little bit of fluctuation, but it's really, when you add all of those funds together, it's really not a significant change from year to year. The biggest thing is, like I said, his contracts for the roads, and that's supplemented by TIF. $500,000 in TIF goes towards that. So he's utilizing, what's that,
500,000, yeah.
Yeah, 537,000. So in total road projects, he's just about at $1 million, including TIF. And then the rest of that, 827,000, is his actual operating. Now, don't get the road projects mixed up with the paving and different things that his department still does with repairing potholes and that kind of stuff, because that is separate from the actual repaving contract.
Yeah, this year we've done a good amount of asphalt, concrete, sealing, all the stuff that really keeps your road network in good shape. As Pete mentioned, TIF has been putting in for years, $500,000. It goes straight to paving. To touch base on paving for 2016, it's a pretty big contract due to the park paving project, which Josh will probably touch base on that also. But
And not included in these numbers.
correct. But with the contract we put out, it's another $180,000 for the senior center. It'll be in that contract, but it's covered through a grant. So the total contract next year of paving it should be about 1.6.
Yeah,
Still early, and it's subject to change a little bit depending on prices and stuff. On the website and in your packets, a list of roads. Of course, if we get closer to the contract putting out and we're able to, squeeze another street on there, we'll certainly do that with your permission. Let's see. Next year, I believe to touch base a little more on the road contract, it's 18 streets we're doing. A lot of them are shorter ones that were skipped years ago. We kind of put this off, but I think it's time that we need to knock some of these out, along with some other subdivisions. So, touch base with a 5-year budget real quick. Just in the next few years, some replacement equipment that we might look into, Bobcat replacement, and then we've put the salt dome roof in there, and that would probably come out of our accounts, is what we've done in the past, just due to what you guys put in for TIF for road paving. Anybody have any questions?
Trustee Seavey?
Just one. In the 03 account, under 0301 road repair contracts, we have a 300% increase on that?
Yeah, that's just using up some of the balances is why it increased that.
That's where he trades back and forth between what fund he's going to utilize.
Okay, so if I put all of the road repair contracts together, I could come up with the real number of what the increase on road repair contracts is?
It'll equal 500,000.
Okay.
I believe it's in the notes there.
The 300,000, 300% increase kind of jumps out a little
That's
bit.
a lot.
Yeah.
Just a little.
And for example, the O2 account, we're building that reserve up, and then once we hit like 100,000, we'll shoot that extra money into paving.
Okay.
But the other 3 accounts all put money into paving.
That's it. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Fiscal Officer Luby?
No questions.
And we'll bring up the FAB member, Paul.
All right, first and foremost, I just wanted to thank Ron, as well as Pete, Jim, Dale, and Brian for meeting. This is my first year on the FAB board, so they were all really helpful walking me through the process. As Ron said, this was really one of the more straightforward budgets we looked at. Nothing really seemed out of the ordinary here. I think he did a pretty good job of answering most of the questions we had and going over everything that really changed. Yeah, besides that, I think you've really covered all the highlights here, so I don't necessarily think I have anything else to add.
So it's FAB's recommendation that we adopt this budget?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And public comment, any questions or comments with regard to Public Works budget that was presented? Okay. Next we'll move to closing arguments. Trustee Seavey?
I just want to thank the department heads tonight for doing a great job, and particularly to the FAB members for the time that you volunteer to be that important set of eyes to review these budgets. Thank you so much.
Fiscal Officer Luby.
I'd like to thank you guys as well. Thank you.
I just want to echo that with the FAB and the department heads. Very impressive that a lot of the budgets are, if they increase, they're single digits, especially with the health insurance cost. We absorbed that 19% hit, and that was just a few weeks ago you found out about that. And then along with the shared services, obviously you're taking a bigger burden on that. So to see the budgets relatively the same as last year is pretty impressive. So thank you. And do we need a motion or just adjourn?
No, we can just adjourn.
All right, well-
Just remember tomorrow, 5 o'clock, same bat channel, Department of Development, Parks and Recreation, and Administration will finish it out.
With that, we'll adjourn the budget meeting, and I think we got a minute or two before our next meeting.
About 5 minutes.
All right. Yeah. I mean, that is impressive.